Mark and I, we were walking down the hallway, and I told this guy, I think I said, good afternoon, but it was 11:59. So it was that awkward moment where you stop and you say, I meant good morning, and he says, as long as you acknowledge us, we're fine. So, Swalé Nunez. Before this morning, I might not have been familiar, but I think I'm a little bit more familiar now, just because they tossed me up on the keynote. Short notice, but I think it was good. You can give me your honest feedback. This won't be to that stage. I actually can control the teleprompter here. So we have a really good a great presentation lined up for you for a couple reasons. One, we did a presentation yesterday, and we took two of those companies, gave us the pleasure of being here today again and giving us a deep dive into their solution, their technology, and their overall, how they interact with Samsung, and just kind of speaking to their technology. This session in particular is let me make sure I'm reading it right, Samsung's mobility platform, the B2B app development Launchpad. What we're going to try to answer in this session is this: how Samsung mobility platform is uniquely designed to help address enterprise challenges and solve real-world problems. Why is this important? Why did we decide to do a session on this? Because if we speak directly to the enterprise app developer, there's this thing where a lot of the solution providers, they are creating products and they give it out to the developers and they just tell them use it. The support is not there, the enablement is not there, and they just focus on the one thing that's important to them. So for some providers, it's, hey, use my SDK. Okay, I use your SDK to do what? This one particular functionality. All right, how do I incorporate that into something larger that I can now take it to market, right? So that one thing, you provide this one thing. If you look up what are the top developer platforms out there, you might see GitHub. GitHub it's a repository, but it doesn't do anything more than that. There's a community there, but again, it's limited to what it offers an enterprise developer. Now, what we're saying from a Samsung perspective is we have an end-to-end solution. So it doesn't matter where you are in that development lifecycle, or in that development process, whether or not you don't have an idea, you want an idea. We can give you that. We have the insights for that. You don't have the tooling from a software perspective, we can also offer that. We have the hardware, as everybody saw, or everybody knows. And what we're opening up as well is our insights, our expertise, our industry knowledge, and we're willing to share that. And we do that most immediately in the form of hackathons. So when we do these hackathons, we'll invite you to come in, and we're going to give you industry challenges. A part of the panel yesterday, I talked to Greg, made mention that, as him being an EMT and being able to kind of have direct touch into the problem he's solving. A lot of the times, enterprise developers don't have that immediate access, right? So we have to create a channel to get them to that point. I did as I was doing some research into this, I searched online, and the question I asked was, where do enterprise developers go to get enterprise insights, right? Who wants to guess where do they go? Anybody? The guy right in front of me, right here, black shirt. Stack Overflow is one. That's not what I found, though, but yes. Stack Overflow is where you go. I have a problem with my code and I need help fixing it because nobody else is going to give me the support. But I'll speak to that as well. So, oddly enough, it's TED Talks. For some reason, developers feel like TED Talks because they do, they give you insights into different industries and they speak to that like the subject matter experts, but that's where a lot of developers go to kind of get insights. Because outside of that, if you go to the App Store now, which is not kind of directed or focused on enterprise, if you go to any of the mobile applications app stores, you're going to find a lot of calculator apps, a lot of note-taking apps, because developers don't know what to build. I have this skill set, but I don't know what to build. So this is where Samsung comes into play. And we're saying it's based on our mobility platform. So our mobility platform and the ecosystem that surrounds it gives you the launchpad that takes you from, again, from an idea, or just the fact that you have technical skills, but you don't know how to kind of leverage that. You have an app, but you want to kind of put together either a go-to-market strategy or partner with a company that can help you get to the next level. And we're saying at every layer here, these layers are strategically put in place, and they help enable you as an enterprise developer. And I'll walk through this and kind of address it step by step, just to kind of give you an idea. But just to kind of, from a high-level perspective, if I call out the things that we talk about devices. Earlier, I introduced 2 new devices from our enterprise-focused devices. We can talk about our OS. And then KNOX is this thing that controls everything, right? It provides that layer of security that you don't get anywhere else. And it's so granular because KNOX is a hardware platform. It's built inside the hardware. And it provides, again, generally when you think of Android, there's some kind of hesitations there because it's open source and there's some reservations when it comes to security, but KNOX addresses that. And then on top of that, we talk about our KNOX partner program, which I'll go into in some detail. And then the partners, right? So identifying those partners, and we have 2 today, Orion Labs and then Rapid Deploy, and they'll talk about their solution. And in that, as they showcase their solution, they're going to identify where Samsung came into play, right? Whether they utilize our devices or some of our services. But the idea here is wherever you are, they had a solution, and Samsung provided an addition to it, right? So again, it's wherever you are in that journey, we're here to complement that. We're supplementing whatever that is. And we're not saying you need us, but if you leverage us, it opens up the possibilities in regards to your reach and what you can possibly do, especially from a hardware perspective, because we are innovators in that space. So talking about the operating system. So our devices run Android. Our wearables and our panels and our smart TVs, they run Tizen. Now, what makes both of these unique? One is the fact that they're open source, and they support multiple platforms. From an endpoint perspective, Tizen gives you reach. I think Tizen's motto is connect everything. And Android's is build everything on Android. And if you couple those 2 together from a partnership perspective, from an integration perspective, that opens a lot of the doors, right? Other OSs, there's a lot of restrictions. You don't have the access that you need. But because of the open source nature of these 2 platforms and the ability to integrate either third-party APIs, when we're talking about cross-platform JavaScript libraries that can kind of integrate and connect with these, the possibilities are endless. Now, I should have introduced some of the devices before I got to the remote test lab, but why this is important and the reason I wanted to share this with you guys. We're here telling you about all our devices. Some of them come at a little cost. And as developers, we might not have the upfront money to dedicate to buy hardware to test these applications. And who here has actively developed before or is developing now? Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, if having a device in hand is the perfect scenario, where does emulators sit? You must have some really good emulators, because, yeah, exactly, right? And you know that you can't, emulators, as much as they try, they cannot emulate or replicate what it's like to have an actual device. And this is why I wanted to highlight the remote test lab, because it gives you access to all our devices, and it's the actual device. And you connect to it, and you're able to deploy your applications to it, test your applications remotely. And it cuts down, as I said before, the hardware costs for testing devices. So you have, not only do you have access to the devices, you have access to a plethora of devices. Did I use that word right? Plethora? A plethora of devices, which is good. And again, sometimes as developers, we test for the devices we have in our hands. This opens up that possibilities, because now we have multiple endpoints, right? And if you're in the IoT space, or if you're in the We talked about just the ruggedized space, like the outdoors, the field services. There's certain devices that are not available to the general public, at least not easily accessible. So this gives you an opportunity to get access to those devices. So let's talk about those ruggedized devices. So I announced 2 devices earlier today. Was everybody here at the keynote? Okay. How did I do? Okay, thank you. Anyways, so the first one was the Samsung Galaxy X-Cover Field Pro. It's a smartphone, and one of the highlights of this I mentioned is the programmable push-to-talk button. And one of the key points I brought up while I was on stage was this idea that the reason it's programmable is because as much as we'd like it to do one thing, it's better if you have the capabilities of doing the things that you need it to do, right? So again, and that's the level of customization that comes with our devices. I'll get to KNOX later, but that is, again, the level of customization you get. It's ruggedized, it withstands the conditions and the elements. We talk about the extreme temperatures, we talk about falling, we talk about what is the IP68 rating, but there's the N810G military rating as well. So yeah, our devices, and again, the reason I'm highlighting these specific devices is because they're intended for the enterprise. They're purpose-built devices for the enterprise. These aren't our flagship devices. You might not find these when you walk into your local carrier store, but they exist. And the test lab will give you access to them as well. The other one I mentioned was the one that was launched is a Tab Active Pro. It's a tablet, all the same kind of toughness and ruggedized nature that with the X cover, but again, a larger form factor. And with a 10.1 inch, it's actually the largest ruggedized tablet in the market. And I'm saying all this because, again, it's as much as I'm highlighting the hardware, as I said on stage, it goes beyond the hardware. It's a hardware, it's a software that sits on top of it, but most importantly, it gives you the ability to innovate, right? So those limitations that exist, it kind of takes away a lot of those, and it gives you an opportunity to just be as creative as you like. You're here to try to solve enterprise problems, and if you're building applications for in the field, as good as some of our devices are, you have to make sure that it actually fits the requirements needed to be out there, and that is the ruggedized nature of it. So I'll do a quick transition here. I gave you information about the devices. We talk about the device and how it can be used, how to gain access to it. But before I continue the presentation, I'd want to invite Greg on stage. And the reason I'm inviting Greg is because as much as I tell you about the devices and how they can be used, sometimes it's just better to actually see it in action, right? And what Greg and the Orion team are doing over there, it's nothing short of remarkable. So, Greg?
Sure.
If you don't mind.
By all means. So I'm gonna, hi everyone. This was me 6 years ago when I first started my business, when I was still alive and full of life and vigor. This is me after 6 years of running my own business. I realized after creating this deck that everyone might not be familiar with the types of challenges we have when we're out in the field. And when I say we, I refer to myself when I actually get to go downrange and operate as an EMT. But more generally, what field workers are experiencing today, right? People who aren't necessarily knowledge workers, who are sitting at a desk all day. So today, the way that we communicate when we're out in the field is with something like a walkie-talkie, right? It's got limited capability, limited range, very high price, and a minimal user experience, right? A very Paquito screen on here. There's no applications for this other than talking to other people. So when we started Orion, what we said was, similar to the axiom about cameras, what's the best camera? The one you have on you. What's the best radio? The one you have on you. And this has an unlimited number of capabilities. So why can't we deliver similar functionality to a walkie-talkie, but through your smartphone or your smart device? And the way we approached this was we said, it's one thing just to provide communications, but we're really living in a time of the proliferation of NLUs and NLPs and language understanding systems. So what if we built it around not just communication, but contextual awareness and automation? And to that end, we built a platform that allows you to communicate with other folks in real time, but not just with other people, with people and things. Provide advanced location, both indoor and outdoor. So this is outdoor where you have GPS and indoor where you have a denied GPS environment. So door and floor location awareness. And then the ability to pull in bots and intelligent agents, as Tim O'Reilly calls them. These do things like real-time language translation between different languages. You know, I may speak English, Swalé may speak French or Spanish. We can still communicate in our native languages across our platform in real time. And then the ability to pull in AI-driven workflows, right? There's a lot of things that we routinely might say on our communications channel that we can automate using voice, right? Why can't we just let the computer do the hard work? Think of things in a retail environment, like a POS lookup or a SKU lookup. Why do I need to turn away from my customer and type into a POS when I could just read off a SKU and have it automatically pull back from my ERP? All right, we're keeping our users' eyes up and heads up and focused on what's in front of them and not distracted, all using their voice. And then a sort of a rich API and SDK platform that lets other folks pull in their own integrations and their own platforms, similar to what you'll see with Rapid Deploy, right? The ability to connect in to a third-party platform. And we're enabling this across many different verticals. You see this in hospitality, right? You know, almost everyone running this event here has a radio on them, and they're all communicating with each other in real time to provide the services we use while we're here, right? Getting us lunch, the janitorial, the AV teams. These are folks who are all eyes up, heads up, and communicating. Retail and logistics, right? Similar to the point of sale example that I gave. Field service and logistics, right? You can't walk outside without tripping over a scooter on the street. Well, there's a field team that goes out and has to service those and stage those devices, and they need to be able to communicate in real time to know where the scooters are at, to pick them up, to service them, to deliver them. And then field safety and folks who work in regulated environments. Think of energy and mining. These are folks that safety is their number one priority, and they need to put workflows into place that allow them to check out equipment, ensure that the equipment is operating correctly, and follow through on a lot of the things that are required in their compliance-driven environments. And we offer this through a variety of Samsung devices, and Samsung has really been a great partner in enabling us to provide this across their portfolio of devices. We have a smartphone app that runs across any Samsung device. We have a Tizen watch app that provides our push-to-talk functionality through the watch. We're running on the new Tab Active Pro today. We have a DEX integration that allows folks who transition from field work to in-vehicle work to in-station work or in-office work, all with the same user interface across these different environments. The benefit of the Tab Active Pro is that when we're in an operational perspective, we could pull this out and pull up our full command center in a full screen display on the tablet and be up and running without any hindrance and without having to pull an entire Winnebago full of equipment with us. Everything we need is right here on this display, and we can run our entire operation out in the field. So I think that's what Samsung has really been able to enable with us, in addition to the champions we found within the organization that have really seen our vision and been able to spread the word of how we're trying to make people safer, faster, and better out in the world using the devices that they have in hand.
So what's amazing about this solution, yesterday's panel was about this idea of kind of workforce enablement, workflow enablement, and then accounting for the first responders, the people who are out in the field, right? Providing them a solution that they can not only leverage, but it doesn't get in the way of them doing their jobs. And our devices help to kind of enable that, right? But it's possible because, again, if I give you a device, I want to make sure that device does what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it. And a huge part of that is single-purposing that device. And how are we able to do that? And that's with the KNOX platform. So the KNOX platform has a suite of APIs. I think right now we're at 1,500 APIs. And those APIs range, fit within certain buckets, right? And I'll highlight a few of them. So from an apps perspective, if you want to whitelist or blacklist applications and kind of dictate what applications get deployed to the device, you're able to do that. From a container perspective, you can separate the work container from the personal container. And it prevents your employees from copying information, sensitive information, from the work side over to the personal side, right? And it keeps it separate. So if you want to hand your employee a device and say, hey, use it freely, and then provide that delineation, that separation, so they're comfortable kind of working with the device, that's actually a benefit. We talk about accounts, email accounts. You can set it up so it prevents the users from being able to either change a password associated with the device or any accounts associated with the device. Connections is an important one. You're able to modify, enable, prevent access for everything from the Bluetooth connectivity to whether or not there's a USB connections, Wi-Fi connectivity. It gives you that granular level of customization. And speaking of customization, that is one of the key ones, the ones we highlight. So from a development perspective, our KNOX customization SDK allows you to purpose-build a device. Everything from how it loads, change the boot up screen to have either your logo, so it's like building your application to run on a device that was your own. So you can completely customize the device. You can repurpose the hardware keys, have it load directly into your application, have it leverage kiosk mode. So there's so many functionalities you get with the customization SDK. And that, for me, knowing the KNOX suite of services, if I step beyond the security it provides, that is the one that resonates most with me. Because as I said on stage, when we're building these applications, it's based on a specific set of requirements. So we need to customize the device so it's able to actually support those requirements that we have for the application itself, right? From a security perspective, from an access perspective, and limiting connections. So how is this all possible? If you guys wanted to go and get access to the SDK, get support for the SDK. So giving you the tool is one thing, providing the support is the other. And that's with our KNOX Partner Program. So it was previously SEAP, Samsung Enterprise Alliance Program, and then we took all the best features from that, and we created this new thing, Samsung KNOX Partner Program, KPP. And what makes this one different, everything is enhanced. So the support is enhanced. There's tiered support. We provide access to the SDKs and the tooling needed to develop from a KNOX perspective. But beyond that, we work with you from a go-to-market strategy, right? So the program provides you access to marketing resources. So we open up not only our support tools from a technical perspective, we have partners that leverage KNOX as well, and it creates this community of some sorts that allows you to interact with the people who are in that same space, find partners to collaborate with, enable each other by you providing your service coupled with theirs, and maybe another solution comes from that. But again, it's become this community that allows you to transition to any point in your development process. Samsung has a plethora. I'm using plethora again. I like that word, plethora. I like it. We have a huge, from a technical perspective, access to APIs. Our APIs library is massive. And they're Samsung specific, right? So beyond what you get typically with Android, we take it a step further. And I'll highlight a few of them. Samsung DeX, which I'll come back to that because I feel like when Todd comes up, there's a conversation that can be had about that. Bixby. So Bixby is our next generation conversational assistant platform. You may have heard of it, but now we are actively going out providing support for that. So we have a Bixby team that are evangelizing. They're going out and having these technical developer sessions, and they're telling us about the Bixby capsules and how to develop one, how to leverage it. The S Pen, the new S Pen that comes in a Note 10. has both a gyroscope and an accelerometer inside of it. And now, so it's beyond just taking touch inputs with the pen. You can now, the sensors generate coordinates on the device that you can use to kind of enhance your applications to now include gesture support and actually use the S Pen as a remote or picking up gestures and utilize that within your application. Now, you might immediately think gaming, but it goes way beyond that. We have the blockchain SDK. We had representatives from the blockchain side on stage today. We talked about it. It helps developers to manage blockchain accounts easily and make transaction easier. Our Samsung Health SDK, if you're in that space, every time I think B2B, I always think healthcare. And our devices are equipped and kitted with the ability to leverage a lot of those sensors. And then the Samsung Health SDK has already prepackaged a lot of those, and all you have to do is just request partnership and you have access to them. And then DeX. Anybody here not familiar with DeX? So what DeX is it enables a PC-like experience. Now, what's unique about DeX is generally when you think about kind of mirroring your device on screen, it's basically that, a mirror of it, right? So you're still within the dimensions of the OS on your device itself. This is a little different because it actually extends the experience to more of a desktop-like. So you have your icons, you're able to kind of resize windows, you're able to have multiple windows, and for all intents and purposes, you cannot tell the difference. And beyond that, you can use your VMware, your virtual machines to gain access remotely. So there's opportunities there. But not only that, we're actually using DeX to help enable a lot of our field workers, helping them do their job better, helping that workforce enablement, that transition from in-office to outside to in the field, and making that as seamless as possible. Now, I can continue telling you that, or I can invite Todd, and he'll do a better job at it than me. So Todd from Rapid Deploy. Round of applause for Todd. I'll give you $1 if you use plethora in a sentence.
I'm going to use plethora in 2 sentences. I think I can do it. My name is Todd Komanetsky. I'm the Director of Partnerships for Rapid Deploy. Let me see if I can get us to the right slide there. So we're in the public safety space. We do software for first responders, specifically 911, so dispatch software. And talking to you a little bit today about some of the work with Samsung, but specifically how it's starting to change the conversation around hardware and where that's fitting in the field. So we have a great group of founders, and we've had the mission has been at the top of their perspective, and that's simple: reduce response time, improves first responder safety. And as I've been going through these conversations, we had all these discussions about DeX, and it kind of wanted to go back to the beginning for a second and just say how we got here and how that's helped us engage with Samsung. So we do 3 really simple things as far as we're concerned. We provide maps for dispatchers so they understand where first responders are. We do CAD software that's all cloud-based that runs on a browser, and that allows the dispatch of fire, police, EMS. And the third is we do analytics, so using artificial intelligence and Microsoft BI to bring learning and insights into not only dispatch, but helping to help first responders more quickly. So the interesting question, the reason this all came up and the reason I'm here is not because of necessarily initially a lot of the programming, but because of the DeX platform itself, and that is, it's completely changed the conversation we're starting to have with the leadership for public safety. Up until now, if you look into a police cruiser, into a fire truck, or into an ambulance, they'll either have a tablet kind of strapped to the dash, or maybe they have a big tough book that's kind of mounted in the middle of it. DeX has allowed us to change the conversation. So now we have people that are saying we could actually put mobile in the hands of law enforcement. You know, the comment about the best camera you have is the one you have. I can't tell you how many fire and EMS people pull out their own personal phone and use it in their day-to-day job. They're not issued by the agency. Having a ruggedized device that can be highly secure and that allows them to go from in their hand as they're walking around to in the vehicle to in the station is completely changing how the leadership is thinking about it. Up till now, the people who got mobile phones from the state or from the agency is leadership, right? The chief got one and maybe a couple of lieutenants got one, but none of the rank and file actually used these devices. They got what was strapped to the vehicle. DEX is changing kind of all of that conversation. When we talk about platforms, and this is a lot of what I do, we have lots and lots of relationships around analytics, we're highly map-based, so a lot of the context for dispatchers and first responders. Esri Maps, Mycello does indoor maps. This is data that is barely been available to dispatchers, and now we're saying we can not only give it to dispatchers, we can bring it all the way forward into the field. So imagine if law enforcement, as they're approaching a building, can pull up our app and engage with an indoor 3D map from Mycello and be able to see exactly what they're walking into in an emergency situation. Having that kind of real-time data available to the first responder in the field is, again, the use case didn't exist because the tools didn't exist. So now that DEX has allowed that conversation to happen, it's really escalating. And putting together the conversation we were just talking about KNOX, the first thing that came up after we said we can do all these things, and the question was, well, how are you going to secure them? Two things came up. One, we started to talk about the KNOX program and help people understand how to secure devices. But second, now that the device is with the officer or the first responder all the time, it's changed the conversation again because they used to leave it in their vehicle. So they used to have this vehicle and had this incredibly powerful access to data and technology that they couldn't bring with them, but they had to keep secure. So Samsung's been a really great partner for us. Again, my job is to figure out how to bring all the partners together. And Samsung for us has all been about the hardware solution that we're able to deliver some of this to. And again, it's really just changing the entire conversation around public safety. And I didn't use plethora, I'm sorry. I have a plethora of hardware solutions. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Sorry, my goal is to not use it again before the session ends. So as we're wrapping this up, a couple of things. So we talked about the OS, we talked about the devices, we talked about the KNOX, and we talked about the partnership. And all those kind of come together when it speaks to our mobility platform and the ecosystem that surrounds it. For us, again, the focus is not just giving you our hardware, giving you our SDKs. It's about how can we help enable you. Going back to the earlier point I made, this idea that a lot of the times, unless you're within an enterprise or you have your own startup, you don't understand those challenges. And this is kind of where Samsung comes in as well. So it's about our insights. It's about, we have industry insights around healthcare, retail, government and public safety, manufacturing, and it spans across multiple different verticals. And not only that, because we have those insights and we know the challenges, we know the pain points, that means we know the customers as well. So as you're building these solutions, or if you need these ideas on what solutions to build, when you finally get to that point where it's created, we still want to be there with you. We want to stand next to you and say, hey, we have a solution, and it was based off of an actual need, and we have the customers that are looking for it. And the plan is to open up our sales channel as well. So if the interest is there, the application has been built, the solution is ready. We have the customer base that's waiting to buy these solutions. And the beauty about B2B application development, it's custom built, it's purpose built, and it's targeted. So it's not just for anybody, it's for who you developed it for, right? So, and if we give you that access to those customers, to that sales channel, that'll help propel your business as far as you want to take it. So, with that said, we're kind of close to our wrap-up time. What I want to do is open it up to the audience. The questions can either be directed to me from a Samsung perspective, or if you have a question to any of the guys that were up here, feel free to ask that question. There's a mic there. Well, show of hands. Are there any questions? There is one. If you don't mind.
Yeah. Do you have any insights? Say you're at a company, you're trying to make a turn where you realize that a lot of the your interactions with Samsung have been just really more transactional. You realize that you're missing the boat.
Okay.
That there could be new revenue streams. Can you talk about what are maybe some of the core resources that you need to kind of engage deeper as a development arm? So if you're really going to grow a development capability in your company to support Samsung at a deeper level, can you talk a little bit, maybe at a high level, about kind of things that you would do or the people that you need?
So within Samsung itself, it's extremely vertical specific, and we target specific industries, right? So as you're building these applications, if you come to Samsung and say, hey, I have a solution for this particular vertical, and it's a proven need, and I'm leveraging Samsung technology, or I think Samsung technology can enhance this solution, and there's an opportunity for us to kind of jointly attack that market, we will assign you. We have business developers in-house that are going to engage you. They're going to walk you through this process of saying, okay, let's understand this completely. Let's understand the market. Let's understand what's important to you. Let's understand how you want to scale. Let's talk about what that scaling process means to you. Are you ready for that today? Because once that channel opens up, that is a commitment from your end to say, hey, I committed to this and I'm going to deliver on that, right? So, but for us, we need to know that you understand that market, you understand that industry. And it's a proven solution that, hey, it actually, Samsung gave me a key differentiator. And you leverage some of our technology that you can't get anywhere else, and that's what makes your solution important. So if you're able to showcase that, I guarantee, I take that back. I'm not going to guarantee anything. But there's a high possibility that we will get you in contact with the right person, not just anybody, somebody specific to the vertical that's important to you and your organization. And we're going to create a relationship, and then we're going to work together to kind of help drive your business goals. Does that answer your question? I'm glad. Is there any other questions? Any last requests for the word plethora? All right. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for showing up. If I can invite my two guests back on stage just for one last thank you, just so you can see their faces. So if you see them in the hallway, stop them, ask questions there. Todd and Greg, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.